I'm gonna find, and I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
When The Last of Us Part 2 was announced in December of 2016, the trailer was met with near universal excitement. However, when that excitement finally came to fruition 3.5 years later, it culminated in one of the most divisive video game releases ever. With Season 2 of The Last of Us releasing on HBO in the coming weeks, now seems like a good time to revisit the story of The Last of Us Part 2 and take a deep dive into the writing of this brutal revenge story. And when I say deep dive, I mean deep dive. This is just part 1 of what will likely end up being a 4 or 5 part series. That is, if people want to see the rest. So, as you watch this video, if you'd like me to continue this series, please let me know in the comments, and the easiest feedback you can give is to subscribe and share it with a friend. In part 1 here, we're going to break down how it's all set up. Joel's controversial death, the introduction of our major characters, the subtleties that both add to and detract from the overall quality of the story, including one-off lines that occurred during normal gameplay, and the retcon to the original game that's needed to make this one work.
I don't know what happened. I was supposed to take her to the Fireflies and walk away.
The game opens on Joel relaying the events of the end of the first game to Tommy. There's a lot said in this important opening, but one line in particular sticks out.
Maybe I was starting to buy into that old cure business. Because of her, they were actually going to make a cure.
Wait, what?
They were actually going to make a cure.
This was never the goal of the Fireflies, not even nominally.
Once they remove it, they'll be able to reverse engineer a vaccine.
For this game to work, it needs to retcon the events of the first one, and it wastes no time in trying to do so. At the end of the first game, Joel made what can certainly be described as a morally ambiguous choice. He decides to stop the Fireflies from ending Ellie's life in pursuit of a vaccine against the cordyceps fungus, and in carrying out his choice, kills multiple Fireflies. Joel chooses one life over many. What makes the ending so interesting is that whether you think Joel did was right or wrong, you can make a legitimate argument depending on what ethical system you use to make it, but it will have flaws. The utilitarian perspective has limits. Sure, a vaccine would prevent people from getting infected and suffering that horrible fate, but...
Even if you get her out of here, then what? How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? That is, if she hasn't been raped and murdered first.
Clearly, infection is not the only threat to people in this world. In fact, it doesn't even seem to be the greatest threat. Especially not in this game, but we'll get there. The deontological belief that the ends don't justify the means does place the Fireflies squarely in the wrong, but it doesn't let Joel off the hook either, as his means involve killing 12 people. Like I said, morally ambiguous. Neither Joel nor the Fireflies come off looking too hot. So this game tries to retcon the first and make Joel's decision more black than gray. What's interesting is, the more the game tried to convince me that Joel's decision was mostly black, the more I became convinced that Joel's decision was mostly white. And I'll do my best to explain why that is, but we'll get there. As Joel continues recounting the events to Tommy, Tommy asks what Ellie knows.
What does Ellie know?
I told her they just ran some tests. I told her her immunity meant nothing.
And she believed you?
I didn't say otherwise.
This does keep continuity with the first game, as it certainly seems at the end that Ellie suspects Joel is lying, but opts to go along with it. There's one more line in Joel's retelling that's important, as it's reflected again at a pivotal moment at the end of the game, and serves as an important part of Ellie's character.
She needed her immunity to mean something.
Just keep it in mind. Joel and Tommy then ride back to Jackson, where Joel and Ellie returned at the end of the first game. Clearly, they've joined and stayed in this community. Before splitting up within the gates, Tommy tells Joel
About what we were talking about earlier. I can't say I'd have done different. I'll take it to the grave if I have to.
This line from Tommy seems to sum up the most common response to The Last of Us' ending. Regardless of their moral opinion, most people seem to agree that if faced with the same situation, they'd likely make the same decision as Joel. Joel came to see Ellie as his daughter, the daughter he lost in Sarah. Now, I'm not a father, but all 3 of my brothers are. And my dad, obviously. I asked each of them how many people they'd kill to save their daughter if those people were threatening their daughter's life. And all 3 of them gave basically the same answer. As many as I had to. A small sample size, sure, but I have a sneaking suspicion that's a general consensus among fathers, at least good fathers. They'll do anything to protect their daughters. The plot of this story begins with Joel's decision, so it's important to remember it how it was, not how this story asks us to remember it. In the next scene, Joel comes into Ellie's house or living quarters or whatever, and Ellie is doodling in a notebook with earbuds in, giving 2 nuggets of information about Ellie's character. She likes music and she likes drawing. Really minor bits of character, but I stopped to note them because it's more characterization in one shot than some of the new characters receive in the entire game. As Joel is talking to her, it's clear Ellie isn't the same girl from the first game. Something has changed. Mostly she just comes across as apathetic or depressed. But Joel proceeds to play the guitar for her and finally gets a smile out of her. He plays Future Days by Pearl Jam. Great song. That was released in October of 2013. 1 month after the cordyceps outbreak occurred in-universe. But hey, maybe they debuted it at a concert Joel was at and he memorized it instantly. Whatever, let's not get bogged down in a pretty minor timeline mistake. Still, I'm interested in what song they'll use in the TV show, since that outbreak occurred in 2003. I'd play the clip of Joel playing it, but it would get flagged and get muted by YouTube's algorithm, so instead I'll just read some of the lyrics. It's a perfectly fitting song for the story that's about to unfold. Every line connects to Joel and Ellie. When Joel sings it, it showcases his love for Ellie, gives us an idea of how broken he must have been when Ellie turned away from him, and foreshadows exactly what happens to Ellie after Joel dies. If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Everything I have found here, I've not found by myself. Try, and sometimes you'll succeed, to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts I've no need for anymore. Joel lost everything when he lost Sarah. Not just his family, but his humanity, his hope. And he found it again in Ellie in the first game. She made him whole, and the worst things of Joel and his past are covered by his love for her. I believe, and I believe 'cause I can see, our future days, days of you and me. Joel's hope for his future rests with Ellie, and that's why he saved her and was willing to kill so many fireflies to do it. Without her, he has no future days worth living. But knowing what this story has in store for us gives this song an ominous feel. Everything that transformed Joel will be undone for Ellie. When Ellie loses Joel, she surely loses herself. She may not have quite the checkered past that Joel had, but she has her own darkness. And a checkered future lies in wait for her. And the missing parts of Ellie created by losing Riley, Tess, Henry, and Sam, the demons that rose out of Ellie having to kill to survive with Joel, those things come back when she loses him. This beautiful song is about both of them equally.
There you go.
Well, that didn't suck.
No, Ellie. No, it did not. It's one of the highlights of the entire game. I know people will say the song is very on the nose, but I'll push back against that and suggest that's only because they can now look back on it knowing exactly what happens in this story. As you experience it for the first time, you may say it's on the nose in showing Joel's view of Ellie, but you can't know what will happen to Ellie. Joel then gives Ellie the guitar and reaffirms his intention to teach her to play.
Yeah, once we're done with this whole thing, I'm gonna teach you how to play guitar. Yeah, I reckon you'd really like that.
As he's leaving, Ellie asks if he remembered the joke he initially forgot.
Tom and I went out riding the other day, and they told me a joke, and I thought about you. It's, oh shoot, now I forgot it. Something about a clock. How do you...
Joel, it's pretty late and I gotta get up in a few hours.
Yeah.
Do you remember the joke?
What is the downside to eating a clock? It's time-consuming.
That's so dumb.
Yeah.
This is a good scene. Probably the best scene in the entire game. Ellie's relationship with Joel is roughly the same, still father-daughterly, but Ellie has changed. Plenty of things could explain this. Maybe it goes back to that line about her needing her immunity to mean something. Maybe she's struggling with the notion that Joel doesn't seem to trust her enough to tell her the truth about the Fireflies. Maybe she's bored with the mundane but secure life they now live after the adventure they went on in the first game. Maybe she's the only teenager in Jackson. Maybe she's not fitting in with the other teenagers that are in Jackson. Or maybe it's just adolescence doing its thing. Whatever the case, the writers have set up something they can certainly explore, all centered around the strongest part of the first game, Joel and Ellie's relationship. And that concludes the game's intro. Aside from the beginning of the attempted retcon, it's not bad. Pretty short and concise, especially compared to lots of video games today, coming in at about 15 minutes. The foundation is being built. Only Tommy and Joel know the truth about Ellie. Ellie may or may not know that Joel lied to her. The two of them have joined Tommy's community in Jackson. Ellie seems to be wrestling with something, and whatever happens in this story, it's clear that Joel's decision is central to the plot. The story picks up 4 years later, when Ellie is 19. She's woken by a knock at her front door. She answers it and we meet Jesse, the only new character whose survival you might care about. He and Ellie have a brief conversation regarding a party the night before.
I heard you had quite a night after I left.
She kissed me. It was just Dina being Dina. She didn't mean anything by it.
I was talking about your fight with Seth. Wait, you kissed Dina?
I thought this...
We're broken up 1 week and you make a move on my girl?
She was probably just trying to make you jealous. I would never...
I'm messing with you, man. I don't care.
So, Jesse used to date Dina, and Ellie and Dina kissed after they broke up. Then Ellie got into it with someone named Seth. You may think all of this sounds like a very minor thing, especially in this universe. And if you're thinking that, it's because you're a normal person, but you are wrong, my friend. It is going to be a very major thing moving forward.
Let me see if I got this right. You kissed Dina,
She kissed me.
which triggered Seth to call you a not-so-nice word.
Yep.
Then Joel decked him,
More of a push.
and then you got mad at Joel. That part confused me.
Oh, see? We're already back to it. Dina and Ellie kissed. Seth called Ellie a not-so-nice word. Joel intervened, and Ellie got angry at Joel. The implication being that Ellie doesn't want Joel to stick up for her. Perhaps because she has found out the truth about the Fireflies and resents Joel for his decision. Throughout the entire game, the story occasionally gives flashbacks to this party, each time revealing a little more of the events that unfolded. As the game goes on, it will become clear that this night is, in the story's eyes, perhaps the most pivotal event that happens before the current plot gets underway. So we're going to stop and recognize it whenever it's brought up, and determine what it means for the plot at that point in the story. For now, it just puts Ellie in a bad mood and showcases a rift between her and Joel. Before stopping off to see Maria, Ellie has the opportunity to stop and pet a dog. This is just a nice touch, because who doesn't love being able to pet dogs, even in video games? It's really just superficial dressing to put a little smile on your face as the player, and I'm sure it can't possibly be more significant than that. Right? When Ellie and Jesse find Maria, Maria tells Ellie that Seth has something to say to Ellie, who responds with,
I don't want to hear what that bigot has to say.
We assume, based on that and the added context that Ellie kissed a girl last night, that Seth said something homophobic. But Maria seems to agree with Ellie for not wanting to hear Seth out, and Joel apparently got physical with Seth. So perhaps it's an even bigger deal than just an insensitive comment. We'll wait until we have more of the story to judge everyone's reactions. Seth apologizes for his actions the night before, confessing that he drank too much, then offers Ellie some steak sandwiches to take out on patrol with Dina. When Ellie doesn't pick them up, Maria forces them into her hands, trying to create peace. Seth slinks away, clearly embarrassed.
What you got there?
Bigot sandwiches.
This short scene attempts to create an air of severity around the obscure events that transpired the night before. It thinks it's taking a righteously indignant stand against whatever atrocity Seth committed. What it actually does is characterize Ellie in a decidedly unfavorable light. Whatever Seth did, he clearly feels bad about it. Enough to not only apologize, but offer Ellie some food for her day. There's no indication that he's made these sandwiches at the behest of Maria. With how heavy-handed this game often is, I think it would make sure the player knew if that were the case. Something like Maria interjecting with, Ellie, Seth had something he wanted to send you off on your patrol with, right, Seth? Before he goes and gets the sandwiches. And Seth offers Ellie not just sandwiches, but steak sandwiches. You'd imagine that steak would be a fairly rare ingredient, and not given out as daily provisions, particularly seeing as how nowhere in Jackson can you find any cattle. Heck, even I don't have steak sandwiches on even a monthly basis. I just take a ribeye and eat it raw. Fewer carbs, you know. So Seth apologizes and offers Ellie a specially made lunch. Ellie's reaction is to turn up her nose at it, insisting that Seth's crime was greater than one a simple apology and steak sandwiches could rectify. She refuses to even eat the food, giving it to Jesse instead. Typically, when someone wrongs you, they are rightfully seen as the bad guy. But if they apologize and strive to mend fences and you refuse to offer any forgiveness, eventually the onus is then on you to make it right, and you start to look more and more like the true bad guy the longer you draw that dispute out. How long until it starts to reflect badly on the original victim depends on the original crime. If you're mad at someone for a week because they accidentally stepped on your toe, you're the problem. But it probably will and probably should take a lot longer if someone underhandedly got a promotion at work by taking credit for an idea you had. And forgiving someone doesn't mean you have to be their best friend, just that you can coexist with them. An apology and specially made sandwiches seems like enough repentance to atone for some harsh words said under the influence of too much drink. So unless what Seth did was much more than that, Ellie comes away from this scene characterized as unforgiving, ungracious, petty, and rude. Not to mention ungrateful for Joel apparently coming to her defense. Much of the success of this story hinges on the audience siding against Joel, and this does nothing to aid in that mission.
When you go out, I want you to trade off with Tommy and Joel. Those boys have been up for far too long.
Where do I meet them?
So, look, I don't know what's going on with you and Joel.
Maria,
The guy really cares about you. And I'm sure he didn't mean to.
we're fine.
This is all stemming from this incident at the party last night. I don't know what happened, but man, it must have been serious for other people to clock the tension between Ellie and Joel from it.
Yo, Dina, assignments.
Just give me a minute.
And here we meet Gina for the first time.
I just want to say sorry for running off last night.
Oh, it's okay. I totally get it. I felt bad. Because I started the whole thing, and I shouldn't have kissed you in front of all of those people.
No,
And,
you were drunk. It's fine.
well, still, I don't want you to think...
No, I'm not reading into it or anything. Just...
You know what I love about you? How you let me finish my sentences.
I'd love to say I drew a lot from this interaction about Dina, but I didn't. And that's a common theme throughout this story. Don't expect to get to know her in any real way like you got to know Joel and Ellie in the first game. Don't even expect me to remember her name. Here's what I know about Nina, and Ellie, I guess. Going on patrol doesn't seem to be their top priority. They have time to get mad at little kids for throwing a snowball at them. Now, obviously, this is just a dumb way to teach the player some of the basic mechanics. It's video game stuff, so we're gonna skip it.
All right. You all know the drill. Run your routes, mark your logbooks, clear any infected you see. You run into anything you can't handle, you come back. Be smart about it. All right. Get going.
This is good to know, that these are the rules for patrols. We'll see if everyone follows them. Hey, that's a pretty shot. It's crazy how far video game graphics have come that I look at this and I'm actually thinking, yeah, I've seen a lot better. Now, in the beginning of this game, it jumps a bit from plot to plot, from Abby to Ellie and back and forth. I'm not going to jump. I'm just going to cover them one plot line at a time, not in the order they appear in the game. Starting with Ellie's section, so let's skip all this for now.
Do you miss being with him?
Look, Jesse's great. I love his parents. They will always be family, but we were just on autopilot.
Hey, how come we never talked about this stuff?
I don't know. It didn't feel... You never really talked to me about Kat.
Yeah, because there isn't much to talk about.
Yeah, so we get a little bit of dialogue between Ellie and Tina just talking about relationships. And honestly, we don't get much more of Lena than this. For basically this whole story, her only real characteristic is that she's Ellie's girlfriend.
Hey, I'm gonna guess this bong was Eugene's.
Huh. It's mine. He gave it to me.
Hey, do you have any on you, actually?
Oh, I wish.
Okay, well, I guess another thing about Mina is she likes weed. I mean, she's basically as interesting as most of the girls I went to high school with. If you know the game well, you might pick up that I'm skipping a decent amount of scenes with Ellie and Christina, but that's just because there's very little to actually glean from them.
What are you doing tonight?
I was thinking of inviting Joel to watch a movie.
Oh. You guys good?
Yeah.
Such a small line, and it's gone fast, but it's a good one. It reveals that Ellie decides to try to reconcile with Joel right before he dies. This is something you maybe can only appreciate once you already know how the story goes, but it's a good touch. It should make Joel's death much more tragic. Okay, from here, Ellie and Angelina just kind of make their way through the patrol and kill some infected like you would expect in a video game. It's pretty uneventful, so I'm just going to touch on a few things that are worthy of note.
Whoa, easy girl. Oh, shit. Looks like infected did this.
How many do you think it would take to bring down a moose?
More than one. Where the hell are they?
So this is just something that's kind of ridiculous about the game. There should not be so many infected around, especially around Jackson, Wyoming. Like, that's a pretty remote place. It's weird that there's constantly a new supply of infected that they have to clear. I realize it's for the sake of gameplay, and this is not a very serious criticism. And Season 1 of the TV show did a good job of making a small amount of infected feel really dangerous, but I'm holding the same standard for Season 2. There better not just be endless infected in Wyoming. Ellie comes across a note that's probably 20 years old, left by someone who apparently shot a man so he or she could get insulin for their little sister. This is one of the benefits of video games as a storytelling medium. It allows for organic world building the player can pick up on. A little note like this paints a picture of the collapse of this world. The writer of it, probably just a kid, seems to have wanted to convince him or herself more than the wife. What choice did I have? He or she was racked by guilt as they saw the wedding ring on the man's hand, or maybe a picture of him and his wife on the wall of the store. Whoever left this note went on a journey, and this was the early stages of it, before they realized they had to leave their humanity behind if they wanted to survive in this new world.
Storm's really picked up. How far are we from the lookout? Just past the next town.
So after a few more tutorials and killing infected, Ellie and Vita finally emerge outside. It's been a while and a storm has started to pick up. And this storm is extremely important for the plot, so I'm mentioning it here right away.
Definitely Eugene's place. He was a firefly?
He served with Tommy.
I had no idea.
Yeah. They got into some real dark shit. What do you mean?
He and Joel did a lot to survive after the outbreak.
This would seem to be the first confirmation that Ellie now knows exactly what happened at the end of the last game. So we can assume that perhaps that's why she and Joel don't seem to be the closest of pals anymore. It seems like Ellie lives in some anxiety over Joel's decision. She worries that anyone with some connection to the Fireflies will figure out what happened and kill her, kill Joel, try to take her and use her to make a vaccine like the original Fireflies. Who knows? We do know that Eugene is dead, and we know that it was of natural causes. I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it a lot more times, but this game really has to try to turn the audience against Joel for its goal to work. One way it could have gone about that is eventually somehow revealing that Eugene had figured out the truth about Ellie and confronted Joel about it, and Joel killed him to protect Ellie. That would really cast some doubt on Joel's character.
I think we should go out like Eugene.
Stroke?
No, from old age.
But they didn't do that. Eugene just died of a stroke.
Oh my god. It's weed.
That's a lot of dead weed.
So Eugene had an underground weed farm, okay? And the game is playing solemn music like it's mourning the fact that all the weed is dead. They look around the weed farm for a bit.
It's a gas mask bong.
God, he was so smart.
Shut up, bitch!
Find some old joints, and come on, let's get to something important.
Can I ask you a question?
I don't know, can you?
Scale of 1 to 10. 1 being, like, absolute trash. And 10 being life-altering. How would you rate our kiss from last night?
Well, this isn't it.
I asked you to rate our kiss?
This is all Alina is. She likes Ellie. That is basically all of her character traits, and her dialogue mostly centers around that. She's an incredibly boring character. Please, say something meaningful.
I give it a 6.
There's nothing I can glean from this, nothing of real value to pull. They keep rating their kiss and smoking weed, and eventually they start making out, blah, blah, blah. It cuts back to Abby, but like I said, we're going to do this one character at a time, so skip that and get back to Ellie.
What about this one?
When I was 12, I found a skateboard. And I tried to get on it, and it shot right out from underneath me. I fell on my knife.
This is what I'm talking about. Even the backstory for how she got a scar in this world is stupid and lame. She fell off a skateboard onto her knife. And I get how that could be ha-ha in this world, that's how she got hurt. But that would only be funny if she was otherwise interesting. We're still in the getting to know her phase, and this is one of the first introductions, the first bits of character we get about her. And she's not interesting. She's so boring. Ask me how I got my scar. Go ahead. Oh, well, if you really want to know, I broke my femur while I was playing football on Thanksgiving when I was 7. My brother grabbed my ankle and I tried to twist out of it and fell directly on my knee while my leg was still twisted, and I got a spiral fracture in the biggest bone in my body. I didn't play football again until I was 21 and walked on at my college. There you go. My scar story is more interesting than hers, and I've seen 0 zombies in my life.
A chemical burn. I did it myself.
Why?
To cover a bite mark. Right here. I got jumped by an infected when I was 14. And turns out I'm immune, so...
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay? No more! Where the fuck are your parents? Who are your parents? I'm gonna call Child Protective Services. It's time to stop!
Are you kidding me? Why would you tell her? Okay. Look, I remember being 19 years old. It was only 6 years ago. I was never a 19-year-old girl, but as a 19-year-old boy, I would have told a girl I really liked a lot of things about myself, but not anything. And not just because I made out with her once. It is beyond stupid for Ellie to tell Selena this. And I don't believe that she would. She spent the entire story up to now feeling unclear where Irina and her stand, not being able to get a good read on her. Now you're telling me she entrusts her with her deepest, darkest secret? Just a few minutes ago, she was anxious about whether Eugene knew about her immunity. Now she tells her friend, who seems to have a propensity for drama, breaking up with guys and kissing girls back to back, the secret she fears anyone finding out? No, this didn't happen. Nothing about this is earned. Sabrina and Ellie's relationship has not been established to be close enough and trusting enough for this. Ellie has not been shown to be infatuated with Coralina enough to be willing to risk everything just to get Ina to like her more. This didn't happen. And what a payoff for it. This absolutely massive bombshell piece of information gets the payoff of Ellie telling Alexandrina in a weed basement and her immediately not believing Ellie. Please, someone save us.
Wait, please! What? Just turn around! What are you doing?
Are you kidding me?
Oh, thank you, Jesse. If you haven't picked up on it, I think Jesse is by far the best new character in this game. But how did he find them? Has he just been going from outpost to outpost looking for them? I mean, this place isn't even a normal outpost. They said earlier it seemed like no one had been here in ages. It was just Eugene's little place. And they brought their horses in with them so they wouldn't have been visible to anyone riding by. I suppose he could have followed their horse tracks, but if this blizzard is as bad as they make it out to be, those probably would have been covered pretty quickly, especially the longer ago the tracks were made. I'm genuinely confused as to how Jesse found them, and why is he alone? He should have someone with him, no? All the patrols are sent out in twos.
Well, then why aren't you at the fucking lookout?
Because Tommy and Joel didn't show up.
What do you mean?
We waited for them for an hour. I was looking for their horses when I saw lights.
Okay, so he did have someone with him, because Jesse's the man, and presumably they split up to find Joel and Tommy? He was waiting for them when he saw lights. Now, I would assume that the lights in question were from the place where Abby's gang is, which we haven't gone over. But then why didn't he go to those lights? Unless the lights he saw are from this place once they booted up the generator? But then why didn't he and his patrol buddy come here?
How much of their region have you covered?
Not much.
Then we split up. Go at it from different sides, and we can cover the whole thing in a few hours.
I don't like you riding solo. We don't know what's out there.
Aren't you riding solo? I'm so confused. How did we end up here? Why is Jesse here? Why isn't his patrol partner here with him? And I'm also a little surprised Ellie is this concerned. Joel and Tommy didn't make it to the lookout, but y'all didn't make it to the place you were supposed to get to either because of this blizzard. Wouldn't your assumption be that Joel and Tommy also just got caught in the blizzard? I guess not because they left earlier than you? People in this story tend to get dropped in where the story needs them to be, and we're going to see an incredibly egregious example of that in Abby's section. But it kind of seems like it happened to Jesse here too. Okay, so the next time we catch up with Ellie is when her and Abby's paths converge. So now let's go back and cover Abby's section. I'm going to analyze the scene that serves as the launchpad for the whole story a little differently than normal.
I think the best way to tell the story is by starting at the end, briefly, then going back to the beginning, and then periodically returning to the end. Maybe just give it a bit of dynamism, otherwise it's just sort of a linear story.
Just tell us what happened.
So yeah, let's start at the end and then figure out how we got there.
Felt like you heard of us or something.
Because they have. Put him against the wall.
Tommy! Puta madre. Who are you?
Guess.
Why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed? Get this over with.
Tourniquet his leg. Do it.
Don't you fucking move.
Clear out. You don't get to rush this.
So it's clear, at least it was clear to me, that the implication is that these are fireflies and they've tracked Joel down to get revenge. That's why Abby said,
Guess.
Because the only people we as the audience know from the first game who would be sufficiently motivated to hunt and kill Joel are the fireflies. Fair enough. They're led by Abby, a sadistic, bloodthirsty woman who relishes in inflicting pain on Joel. At least, that's this impression of her. You see, for her, it's not enough to just kill Joel. Joel didn't just kill numerous fireflies, he stopped them from saving who knows how many more. Whether that's true or not, it's what the fireflies believed, so their motivation is understandable. What's prevalent in this scene is Abby. Abby has a dark, twisted spirit. She isn't trying to protect someone or something. She isn't defending herself. She doesn't need answers. She doesn't ask Joel a question, not even why. She doesn't accuse him or articulate her hatred for him.
You took everything from me.
She doesn't just want Joel to die, the same fate he inflicted on the fireflies. She wants him to suffer, and moreover, she wants to be the one to cause it. This is primarily Abby's fight, it seems. Perhaps she lost more than the others because of Joel. Maybe since then, much like Ellie over the span of the first game, multiple people she knew got infected and had to be killed. She shows no hesitation, no remorse, nothing but hate for the man in front of her. A man the player really likes and has spent a lot of time with. A man, though he is very flawed and has a checkered past, has been shown, even at his darkest, acting out of two motives: survival and love for his adopted daughter. Never simply bloodlust or revenge. This story will try to make the player like Abby, sympathize with her. It will try to draw parallels between Abby and Ellie, even try to place the two on equal ground. But the game introduces us to Abby in this way, by showing her bludgeon the protagonist of the first game to death with a 4-iron. The protagonist we spent hours with, getting to know, coming to understand, watching his rough exterior broken away as he allows himself to love someone like his own child for the first time in 20 years. So you could say they're starting a bit behind the 8 ball. And to try to get back in front, the game needs to do 3 things. First, it needs to rewrite Abby's character, and trust me, it's going to try. Second, it needs to drag Ellie down to make us like her less, because that always goes over well with fans when writers try to do that with established characters.
Go away!
And third, it needs to try to recontextualize Joel's decision at the end of the first game as wholly bad, as we discussed at the beginning. So throughout this critique, basically every major scene is going to be analyzed with an eye towards how the story goes about trying to accomplish those 3 goals, and whether or not it succeeded. It's also worth noting here that Joel doesn't fight back against Abby. Like, they let go of him, and I get his leg's been shot and he's outnumbered, but he doesn't lunge toward Abby and attack her. He doesn't try to catch the club when Abby swings it. He doesn't even try to dodge it. He just lets it happen. This is another common and frustrating trend in this story. Joel does not stand up for himself. Many people claim Joel's character was assassinated in this story. I kind of half agree. He still stands up for Ellie, still is a beast when dealing with infected, and still has some sense of toughness.
Why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed? Get this over with.
I'd say his character was neutered. In the flashbacks that come, Joel cowers under a barrage of accusations. He never defends his words or actions, either from the first game or this one, because if he did, the player might remember that Joel is not completely in the wrong, and the veneer around Abby would disintegrate. But anyway, let's figure out how we got here. So, we see a group of people sleeping on the floor of this house. They're in sleeping bags, so it's clear this isn't a permanent residence for them. I mean, I'd assume this house still has some beds and couches, but whatever, I guess they've got a big party and they had more people than available furniture. Wait, no one opted to sleep on the chair with the ottoman? Okay. Oh, and this chick's pregnant. Why is she sleeping on the floor? Alright, guess they're all roughing it in solidarity or something. This man, Owen, tells Abby he wants to show her something.
What are you doing wandering around out here by yourself?
First characterization of Abby. She's cautious. That's a very fair question, Abby. I wonder if I'll be able to ask you the same question later.
Are you breaking up with Mel?
What? No. You wish.
I've had my fill. Thank you.
Here we get our second character description. Abby and Owen seem to have a romantic history, but Owen is dating Mel now.
What is that?
You'll be fine.
It's too high.
Come on.
And now we get a third characterization. Abby has a crippling fear of heights, something a lot of people can relate to. So far, they've made Abby innocuous. She promotes caution, she has romantic entanglements like everyone else, and she's scared of heights.
Is this it?
We made it.
It's a fucking city.
Yeah. Wanted you to see it first.
Owen took Abby to see Jackson. Apparently this is their group's destination, or rather someone within Jackson is their target, but they weren't prepared for just how large or well fortified it would be. We know they're looking for Joel, and the idea of getting to him in Jackson is laughable. So what will they do?
Assuming he's in there, how do we get to him?
We can corner one of the patrols and get confirmation, and then, I don't know, maybe find a way to lure him out.
I'm sure they'll be happy to offer that information up.
Well, then we make them.
Owen doesn't seem to be on board with the idea of interrogating or torturing someone, and he's surprised Abby would float the idea. So I guess she has a reputation for being nonviolent, or at least she doesn't have a reputation for being ruthless.
You hear yourself?
So this group doesn't seem to want to be violent. Okay. Kind of makes sense, as one of them is hesitant to tourniquet Joel's leg so Abby can prolong his suffering. Like she thought they were just going to shoot him and be done with it.
What is going on with you?
Mel's pregnant.
Yes, Owen's girlfriend is pregnant. He doesn't want to launch an assault on Jackson and put a pregnant woman in harm's way. He's protecting Mel on the basis that she's pregnant, telling Abby to possibly dissuade her from the path she's suggesting. Totally understandable. I'm not sure why Mel even came on this little mission in the first place if she's pregnant, but I'm sure Owen will be consistent in protecting her from here on out. Also, make a note that Abby is surprised to hear that Mel is pregnant, despite the fact that she's been traveling with her for who knows how long. I promise all of this will be relevant later.
When everyone else sees this, they're going to want to turn back.
We can convince him, right?
Abby, I want what you want, but not at any cost.
So this exchange raises some questions about Abby. Let's run through them. Who is Abby? Who are the people with her? Is Abby their leader? If so, then why? She seems pretty young. We know she's here to kill Joel, but why is she so convicted to do this that she's willing to put people she presumably cares about and who like her in harm's way to get to him? Is she really willing to torture others just to find Joel? Is everyone with her as motivated to find Joel as she is? It doesn't seem that way, so what makes Abby special? We don't need answers now, but we do need answers. And for the story to accomplish its goal, the answers need to endear us to Abby.
See you back at the lodge.
I don't care if you guys are having a little fight. You really shouldn't go anywhere in this world alone.
Fuck it.
Hey, Abby, I've got a question for you.
What are you doing wandering around out here by yourself?
Why are you going off on your own with no knowledge of the terrain? What's your plan? I guess to go to that outpost and torture whoever's there? Again, a big problem in this story is that it portrays Abby as two different characters. Here, she's reckless, impatient, indifferent to the needs and opinions of her friends, and consumed with bloodlust. But later in the game, the writers try to portray her as cautious, self-sacrificing, and almost universally loved. And none of the other characters bat an eye at these two diametrically opposed personalities. As Abby presses towards the outpost, she starts coming across a lot of dead bodies. Where did all these dead people come from? There's a whole group of them in the middle of the mountains. It's supposed to make you suspicious and pay off when a swarm of infected show up, but it doesn't make much sense. I guess they were trying to make it to Jackson and froze to death right outside? They're not infected, right? How did this girl die here? What? Now look, from here, the game puts the pedal to the metal and does not slow down until Joel's death. That's weird. We've never seen an infected act like that. Just lying on the ground frozen until it can grab someone's leg? Okay, I guess. From here, Abby begins boxing infected. Seriously, no knife or melee weapon of any kind, just straight up fisticuffs. In typical video game fashion, it builds up from one at a time until there are almost too many for Abby to deal with solo. Maybe she shouldn't have gone off on her own. Abby fends them off, makes her way through some buildings, and consistently encounters more infected. Presumably, she's still making her way towards the outpost, although I'm not sure how, as she has no visual on it, doesn't know the terrain, didn't look at a map, and is likely to lose her way as she focuses on dealing with more infected. Like, can she even tell north from east without seeing the sun or stars? But somehow she's making a beeline for the outpost and never gets disoriented at all. Eventually, she kills some more infected and comes across horse tracks that will lead her straight to the outpost. Neat! She follows the horse tracks through yet more infected that the patrol ignored like they were just bums asking for weed money, and all of a sudden she gets overrun by infected. They chase her, as they do, and Abby's only priority is to get away from them. I repeat, her only priority is to get away from the infected. She ends up in a small group of buildings, and as she makes her way between a barbed wire fence and a wall, a veritable army of infected claw at her through the fence, threatening to break it down. One forces its way through and pins Abby down, trying to bite her. As she grapples with it, a gun appears above her head and shoots the infected. Joel saves her. She gets saved by Joel. And here's where the story really goes off the rails, so bear with me. How lucky for Abby that Owen went off on his own on a somewhat dangerous journey to see Jackson from a distance. How lucky for Abby that Owen took her on that somewhat dangerous journey to see Jackson from a distance instead of just reporting to her what he found out about it. How lucky for Abby that she makes the insane snap decision to find a patrol and torture them to confirm Joel is in Jackson. How lucky for Abby that the one person she's looking for in Jackson is indeed still there after 5 years. How lucky for Abby that at the time she realizes she can't feasibly get to Joel and Jackson because it's too large and too well fortified, Joel is currently out on patrol. How lucky for Abby that the outpost she sees and heads out for is the one that Joel and Tommy are in. How lucky for Abby that she doesn't encounter any other patrols along the way, since there were other outposts shown in between. How lucky for Abby that she comes across horse tracks that belong to Joel and Tommy. How lucky for Abby that Joel and Tommy didn't see any of the groups of infected she did and head back to Jackson to sound the alarms. How lucky for Abby that a horde of infected chases her straight to the outpost she set out for. How lucky for Abby that she was being chased by a horde of infected, or Joel and Tommy would definitely not have approached her, at least not in a friendly manner. How lucky for Abby that Joel and Tommy ignored their own survival instincts and decided to help a stranger instead of getting away from the area. And how unlucky for Joel.
Hey, you got a gun?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just realized. Okay, let's break down just how stupid Abby is. Abby sets off to ambush a patrol of an unknown number of armed people. Not great. Abby sets off to ambush a patrol of an unknown number of armed people on her own. That's bad. Abby sets off to ambush a patrol of an unknown number of armed people on her own with no knowledge of the area. Okay, that's worse. Abby sets off to ambush a patrol of an unknown number of armed people on her own with no knowledge of the area and with nobody knowing where she's going. That has to be it, right? Abby sets off to ambush a patrol of an unknown number of armed people on her own with no knowledge of the area and with nobody knowing where she's going and with no means of communicating with her allies. Okay, surely this character can't get any more foolish, right? Abby sets off to ambush a patrol of an unknown number of armed people on her own with no knowledge of the area and with nobody knowing where she's going and with no means of communicating with her allies, and she does so with barely anything to use as a weapon. She technically has a little handgun at the beginning, but it's only got 3 bullets to start. That's why she was boxing the infected like Jake Paul. What was her plan? She was going to go to the outpost and overpower whoever was there to torture them about Joel. But she didn't account for the fact that she might run into some infected, so she was fine only taking a gun with 3 bullets. And surely she'd realize there would be more than one person per patrol, right? And that they'd be armed? In fact, Owen even tells her the patrols are armed.
I saw an armed patrol go from town to an outpost over there.
How does she intend to overpower them? I get her being confident she could get the drop on 1, but 2? Heck, Owen never specified how many people were on a patrol. There could be 10 people per patrol with rifles, and you didn't have anything. This character is a raging, erratic idiot, driven by blind rage towards a man she has possibly never even seen. Why did you leave that house in an unfamiliar area in this world without arming up? Why would you go anywhere in this world without a fully loaded gun? And why didn't you just go back and get one?
Where the hell they all come from?
Good question, Tommy. Where did all these infected come from? We're in the middle of the woods in Wyoming and there's at least 100 of them. What, did a group of them migrate west like the frickin' Oregon Trail or something? I don't know, but that looks like it might be something a little worse than dysentery. Do they now travel in packs? That's not a thing. How did they get here? There's a scene kind of like this in the first game where Ellie and David are out in the woods and a clicker just shows up randomly and a whole swarm follows. It doesn't make sense there either, but in that story it mostly just serves as an action scene. Like, hey, it's been a while since you killed some zombies, so here you go. The most that can be said story-wise is it builds a little trust between David and Ellie, but here the magical swarm is the reason the protagonist dies, and it makes no sense. Like, look how many there are. Did they just show up?
We gotta warn everyone. Come back with a cleanup crew.
Have you never patrolled this area before? I thought the point of a patrol was to consistently monitor specific areas and keep a lookout for anything that changes or is threatening. But wait, your horse tracks went right by an area where Abby was dealing with infected. So are all these patrols led by Helen Keller and none of them saw or heard all the infected from this area? Or are they truly migrating in a pack and just arrived here? F*** off, story. Why are Joel and Tommy here? I get why Joel saved Abby now that they are here. 3 people against a horde of infected have a better shot than 2, but why are they here? And I don't mean here as in this general area, I mean here as in this specific spot. Why didn't they hear the horde coming and immediately start moving? Seriously, I invite anyone to explain to me in the comments how the 2 of them ended up right here, besides the writers dropping them here like Roller Coaster Tycoon park guests. The horde chased Abby here, so it was behind her. If there had already been infected here, she would have been cornered or forced to start going another direction as some approached from the front. Surely Joel and Tommy didn't see the swarm and run into the middle of it to save a rando. That's not on brand for either of them. But I guess the alternative is that there was actually another swarm from the opposite direction that forced them to converge on Abby's position, and that's just not possible.
Not probable.
Who here? Oh shit! Hold up!
Where the fuck did you come from? Is there really another group of infected that came from a different direction and converged on this building? Or did you guys sneak through the side door? I didn't realize the infected had such capacity for reason and flanking maneuvers. Where are their horses? They take horses on these patrols. They had them in the intro. Paulina and Ellie have them. In fact, Abby followed tracks that presumably belonged to Joel and Tommy's horses. But now they're inconveniently absent. Did they die or something? It'd be really easy for them to avoid the infected and head back to Jackson if they had them. And then Joel wouldn't die. Oh, that's why they're absent.
Hey, I'm Tommy. That's Joel.
Why does Tommy give up their names? I want to be clear that it is Tommy who tells her, because when this first came out in 2020, for some reason I remember a lot of people saying it was out of character for Joel to give up his name, but it is Tommy who gives it up. Now, I may be misremembering what people were saying, but either way, it's still a huge character attack against Tommy. Like he straight up says,
I'm Tommy. That's Joel.
Like he's an 18-year-old introducing himself to a girl at a freshman mixer. He might as well have said, I'm Tommy Miller. This is my brother Joel. Joel Miller. Joel Miller came to Jackson after Joel Miller and Joel Miller's adopted daughter Ellie escaped Seattle after Joel Miller stopped the fireflies from killing Ellie to make a cordyceps vaccine. Oops, sorry, I mean a cure. That's Joel Miller. And why here and now? This is not important information right now. They are breaking down that door. You addressed Abby as girl earlier.
Hey, girl!
And your point got across just fine. And if you think you need her to know your name so you can give instructions to each other, just give fake names or use your middle names. It's not even as though the two brothers call out to each other during the battle and Abby picks up on it. Although to be totally fair, Joel does yell Tommy's name at one point.
How we doing, Tommy?
But Joel's name never gets said. It could have made for an interesting little cutscene too. Joel is in trouble and Abby's the closest one to him. Tommy calls out, "Joel!" and Abby's head snaps towards him. We see the realization spread over her face and she hesitates before shooting the clicker that has Joel pinned down because she knows she needs him if she has any chance of making it out of this. And then she struggles, or at least hesitates, to finish the job back at the lodge after knowing they saved each other's lives. Or possibly she lets Joel get bitten by the clicker before shooting it. It'd be a poetic death. In Abby's mind, Joel is meeting the same demise she thinks he doomed the whole world to. And now Ellie is seeking vengeance for Abby not saving Joel, rather than slowly and brutally torturing and murdering him. And the mission to draw a moral equivalence between the two of them becomes a much more realistic endeavor. But lol, no, I'm Tommy, that's Joel. Now, let's be totally fair, okay? If Tommy and Joel had given fake names, would the end result have been different? Abby set out to capture and torture a patrol for information about Joel. So even if Tommy and Joel had said they were Fred and George, they still would have ended up back with Abby's gang, and she would have at least wanted to torture them. But now the situation is a lot different. We're already pretty sure from Owen that the others aren't on board with torturing even Joel, much less an innocent patrol. What if Joel and Tommy can come up with a lie about why they're near Jackson? Perhaps they say they're traders just passing through, or they're making their way to Jackson because they heard it was a safe haven. Abby surely wouldn't believe them and would still want to torture them, but the others? Maybe they try to put a stop to it, telling Abby they didn't sign up to torture innocent travelers. The group argues amongst themselves while keeping Joel and Tommy subdued until Ellie finally makes it to them. With the added detail of someone clearly from Jackson who has come looking for them, the gang realizes they've been lying, and perhaps they let Abby use Ellie as leverage to get Joel to tell the truth. The writers made Joel and Tommy act stupidly to simplify the plot. The real effect is that the writers didn't have to craft extra dialogue and conflict before arriving at their big payoff.
That ain't gonna hold. We gotta go back. We can't outrun them all the way to Jackson. We need to barricade that door.
Well, not on foot, but maybe if you had horses! Because they absolutely would be able to. Okay, look, this is a nitpick, but here it is again. There are no infected coming through that door. I'm sorry. They would have followed the three of them to the same door they entered. What, did one of the infected a little behind the action tell his buddies, "Hey guys, I know a side entrance we can use to cut them off"?
We cannot stay here. The horses ain't making it all that way.
Oh wait, so you do have the horses? Where? Why aren't you on them? Why do you think your horses can't outrun the infected? Have you seen the Kentucky Derby? Those things are fast, even if they're not thoroughbreds. Hold up, does that mean they actually did see Abby in trouble, get off their horses, or at least leave the horses, and charge into a horde of infected to save a random person? Because no, Joel and Tommy did not. These two molded bran muffins must be Joe and Timmy, because Joel and Tommy would absolutely not do that for a stranger who's already gotten a bit too close to their home. And what do you mean the horses ain't making it all that way, Timmy? You say later you're just a few miles away. What kind of horses are you riding? Is it Lil Sebastian? Didn't the horses already make this journey to get you from Jackson to here? And Jackson is shown to be downhill from this place. So wouldn't it be easier for the horses to get from here to there than it was to get them from there to here? And even if they can't make it all the way because of the weather or something, why do they have to get you all the way back to Jackson in one go? You just need to get away from here and lose the infected. Go to another place you know. How about the little town you were patrolling in the intro? How about the weed place or one of your other outposts? Unless you truly have never been up here and don't know anything about where you are. The real reason, of course, is because Abby wouldn't be able to overpower Joel and Tommy and Jackson and would never get out alive, so we need to manufacture a scenario where the two of them are severely outnumbered, even if it means trying to justify it with nonsense like this.
My friends are at a mansion just north of here. It's fenced in, we have the whole perimeter secure.
It's a Baldwin place.
So you are familiar with this area. So familiar, you even know who used to own an abandoned house. Which means all of these infected really did just show up here out of nowhere. Or else they were hibernating under the snow? But no, then the patrols would have seen them back before the winter. You said,
"We gotta warn everyone. Come back with a cleanup crew."
So it's not like you knew they were here and you've just been ignoring them. This feels like confirmation that the infected just showed up here in a huge group like they were trailblazing across the West in search of gold in 1850.
Good work.
All right. I'll get the door.
You ride with me.
Wait, their horses were here in this very building? So I'm left to believe that Joe and Timmy were safe in this building, actually probably didn't even see, heard the huge swarm of infected a couple buildings away, left their horses, and ran directly into the middle of it? Well, maybe they saw Abby and were worried it was someone from Jackson. But how did they see her? Through the buildings? And why would they think that? Why would anyone come here? They're supposed to meet Jesse at another location, but there's no reason for anyone to come here for them. Also, if they went in thinking Abby might be from Jackson, they should be very surprised and suspicious to find out they don't know her. So why does Tommy tell her their names? But again, even if they did think she might be a Jacksonian, why was this the plan? Why leave the horses? No attempt to use the horses to distract and draw the infected away from the stranger with noise? No attempt to pick up the stranger onto your horse and ride away with her? They couldn't ID the stranger with binoculars or the scope of a rifle? No attempt to flank the horde and attack it from the back? No Molotov? Tommy uses one here instead of at the fence, which is relatively pointless considering how many are coming from the other direction. But no, none of that. See someone in a hopeless situation and go drop yourself right in there with them. Don't even try to alter said situation. Go drunk game, you're home. They're still coming. There are still more infected. How did Abby's gang not come into contact with any of these? How did Abby and Owen not meet any during their little walkabout? Abby didn't come across the infected until she dropped down not one, but 2 cliffs. Either there were also mass quantities of infected up here, or they're somehow all keeping pace with the horses. Either way, no. They have the gate open? Why? Abby hasn't been shown to have a walkie-talkie or some sort of communication equipment to alert them, or even a flare. And you can't even see the gate through the blizzard until they're 50 feet from it. So Abby's gang hears a horde of infected, maybe a couple gunshots, and sees nothing through the blizzard except presumably some infected who are close to the fence, and their reaction is to hold the gates open before they can even see anyone approaching? Okay, I guess. Maybe Owen just assumed it was Abby. Why aren't you wearing gloves? They'd protect your hands from the cold and from infected bites. I'll never understand why people in this world haven't figured out that they should just thickly cover all of their exposed skin, especially in a freaking blizzard. There you go, fireflies. There's your vaccine. Hey, look, a Molotov. That's how you're supposed to use one, Timmy.
What are y'all doing out this way?
Just passing through. You two live nearby?
We do. A few hours down the hill. Y'all should come back with us, restock before you head out.
Stop it, Timmy. Stop it right now. Last time the people at Jackson almost shot Joel and Ellie, a lone middle-aged man with a 14-year-old girl, for showing up at their doorstep. And now you're inviting a heavily armed group of fighting-age people to come back with you to your home. What is happening? One of the nice parts about having your base in Jackson, Wyoming, geographically speaking, is that you can be pretty certain that anyone who shows up there is trying to get there. I know this because I've been to Jackson Hole multiple times. Here's a topographical map of the region. Jackson is buried in the middle of the Grand Tetons. Can you see a starting point and an ending point where an optimal path would take you through Jackson? No? Maybe Dubois to Idaho Falls, but seriously, anywhere else? Anyone?
Anyone?
The point is, they should be wary of anyone coming this close to Jackson. They're clearly here for a reason.
Appreciate it. I'm Mel, by the way.
Tommy.
Oh yeah, so that's Mel. She's clearly very early in her pregnancy, right? Like you definitely can't tell she's pregnant. I promise I'm harping on this for a reason.
This is my brother.
Joe.
Again with the names.
Felt like you heard of us or something.
Because they have.
Wow. Neither of you noticed Abby getting a shotgun and aiming it at Joel? I remember these sharp, prepared, never-trusting survivors from the first game. Right? No! Tommy didn't immediately go for his gun. Alright. How did you two survive 25 years in this world again? This game got compared to The Last Jedi a lot. And it's not just because they both start with the last and were very divisive. One reason is because of sequences like this. So often in TLJ, things happen and characters make decisions that make no sense both in and out of universe. And when you ask yourself why, the only explanation is that that character did it so that the next thing can happen. The payoffs were decided on first, then the setups were contrived around that. Why did Admiral Holdo not share her plan with anyone? Well, so Finn and Rose could go on a side quest. Why do Finn and Rose get jailed for a parking violation? Well, so they can meet a codebreaker. Why, if the codebreaker was able to easily escape the jail, had he not done that? Well, so Finn and Rose could escape too. Why does the codebreaker agree to help them break into the First Order's fleet before anyone even mentions paying them? Well, because Finn and Rose need to get the XP and electric sword upgrade. And this problem permeates throughout the movie. Here, why is there a random massive horde of infected in the middle of the mountains outside Jackson, Wyoming? Well, so Abby can be chased towards the very man she is seeking on her revenge expedition. Why do Joel and Tommy go straight into the thick of the horde? Well, so they can save Abby and the three of them can meet. Why does Tommy volunteer their names? Well, so Abby can know this is the man she's searching for. Why can their horses suddenly not make the journey back to Jackson, despite the fact that they must have made the same trip to get here? Well, so Joel and Tommy can be outnumbered and overpowered, so Joel can be placed at the mercy of Abby.
Joel! Tommy!
So Ellie, Jesse, and Adelina go looking for Joel and Tommy, and of course Ellie finds them first.
Joel? Tommy?
Don't know why she's yelling. Surely she's probably worried that there are people are infected in this house, judging from all of the dead infected by the fence, and you'd want to use stealth. But nobody hears her, so whatever. Ellie enters the house and hears Joel's pained screams. She follows the sound of them down to the basement and opens the door. She sees Joel bleeding on the ground and Abby standing over him, and she's wrestled to the ground, but not before getting a good slash on the guy who initially jumped her. Abby's gang realizes that more people from Jackson are likely on their way and that they need to get out of here. Owen tells Abby to end it, and Ellie is forced to watch as Abby crushes her adopted father's skull with a tailor-made. One of the men then goes to shoot Ellie but is stopped by Owen. They have a heated discussion over it that Ellie can't hear as her mind is too overwhelmed by having just watched Joel be murdered in such a gruesome way. Then someone knocks her out. Eventually, the three of them, Tommy's still knocked out too, are found by Jesse and Trina and are brought back to Jackson. Alright, rewind. Okay, she opens the door, sees Abby. Okay, shoot her. Shoot her! Shoot her now! Why does Ellie hesitate longer to shoot someone to save Joel now than she did when she was 14?
I shot the hell out of that guy, huh?
She sees Joel broken and bleeding on the ground as someone is standing over him holding a golf club and... what? She needs more information? Ellie hesitating to shoot Abby is something that happens more times than it should in this story.
You're done.
You want what I want, right?
End it. Now.
Owen tells Abby to end it, but Abby the psychopath doesn't want to be done. She wants to keep torturing Joel, even as her and her supposed friends are in a situation that grows more and more dangerous by the second. We can't hear what Owen is saying to this jabroni to convince him not to shoot Ellie. Good thing, too, because it would probably require my script to be 4 pages longer to unpack why Owen's justification is dumb. You should kill Ellie. You understand what Abby just did to get revenge on Joel? Don't you realize you're leaving the possibility open for someone to pull an Abby on you? Which is kinda what happens. Also, how did no one put it together that maybe the girl that came to find Joel and is about 5 years older than the girl Joel killed a bunch of fireflies to save 5 years ago is the same girl that can be used to make a vaccine? Oh, cure. Y'all know how I feel about plots being moved forward by people being dumb. And here I don't think a character has made an intelligent decision yet. By the way, the guy that spat on Joel's corpse and told him to burn in hell, the same guy who called him puta madre, which is the Spanish equivalent to motherfucker, the guy who went to shoot Ellie, his name is Manny, and we're going to remember that Manny did these things. So, this is the disastrous opening that had some players stopping the game on the spot. Some players cut their game disc with scissors, because back then you could still buy physical copies of games. Obviously, this was a controversial route Naughty Dog chose to take. Not just killing Joel, but killing him at the very beginning of the game. And not just killing him at the very beginning of the game, but doing it in such a brutal, sadistic manner. You might say the game took risks. That is not in question. But you don't get credit just because you took a risk. If I tell a joke at work about how Ohio's proposal to fine people for being bad drivers seems kinda sexist, it might get a big laugh. But it might score me a fun little sit-down with my company's HR department. That's the risk I take, and you know I've taken it plenty of times. If and when I do end up in HR, they won't commend me for taking a risk, and writers and studios shouldn't get credit for simply taking risks. They need to pay off. If the risks do pay off, then those involved should get all the credit due them. But how big a risk is this? Well, let's think. Can you kill Joel at any point in the game and make it work? I think the answer to that is pretty clearly yes. Protagonists die in stories all the time, and if done tastefully and with skill, it often goes over quite well. Can you kill Joel in a brutal, gruesome way? Again, I think you can, especially in the context of this world. Joel isn't entitled to a romanticized death. In fact, anything of the sort would be out of place in this world. In a grounded world teeming with zombies, unceremonious deaths are going to be par for the course, as they are throughout these games. Can you kill Joel in a brutal, gruesome way at the beginning of the game? Now it starts to get dicey. The short answer is yes, but there are more qualifiers that are necessary to make it work. First, it has to be done without contriving any character inconsistencies or plot conveniences, or inconveniences like the one it took me 10 pages of Times New Roman 12-point font to cover. And second, if he is killed by an actual character, rather than just infected, it has to be done to set up a villain for the new protagonist to take down. Because that's what the players, the audience, is going to want to do. They will feel an immediate hatred for the character that kills their hero. It will be incredibly unsatisfying if Joel gets brutally murdered by a random character and then said character just takes off never to be seen again. But this game didn't go either of those directions. It tries to make the audience actually like the killer. For those of you that haven't played these games and just watched the show, I've tried to think of a movie where the equivalent of this happens, but I really can't think of anything. So imagine this. Imagine after Mufasa dies in The Lion King, the movie tried to get you to like Scar and place Scar and Simba on equal moral footing in your mind. Now, imagine that there had been a previous movie without Scar in it for you to get to know and like Mufasa. That'd be a tall order, wouldn't it? Not impossible, but you'd certainly have your work cut out for you. Well, that's kind of what The Last of Us Part 2 is trying to do, and it's dug itself quite a hole. So as I mentioned earlier, as we go through this story, I'm going to keep an eye towards this mission, examining how the story tries to accomplish this Herculean task, and whether or not it was successful. So, that's the end of part 1. I'm recording these as I go, so I'm not sure how many parts there will end up being, but it'll either be 4 or 5, assuming this one gets any sort of traction. Either way, this one will likely be the most dense of the series. If there are any notes, questions, or corrections for any mistakes I made that show up in the comments, as there likely will be in a solo project this large, I'll try to address them and append that to the beginning of the next video. Until then, God bless.